Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Mark's Inspiration. Glad you could join me here today. As always, today's topic is going to be business. Business, clients, and negotiations. Before we begin, smash that like button and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know when we have a video coming out. And actually, we have one coming out every day. Unless I get really busy, I may cut it back, but maybe not. Let's see. So the reason I decided to talk about business and clients today is I had a client last week who is in the Army, and I didn't get the job, but I so enjoyed talking to him. If you take an interest in people, don't worry about whether you're going to get the job or not. Just take an interest in people. A lot of times people will hire you not because you're the cheapest bid, but because they like you. Now, do you take an interest in them so they'll like you to get the job? No, don't do that. Just take an interest in the person as a person. If you get the job, it's a plus. If not, hey, you made a friend or another contact or both. So that's always something to think about. But when I talked to this guy that was in the Army, he's been serving in Afghanistan, and he's been in the Army for about 15 years. I ended up talking to him for about an hour and a half. I had another job bid to give, and I did not get to that one. I wasn't scheduled. There was no time scheduled, but so I was able to do it the next day, or Monday, I'm not sure which. But I'll remember that for many years, and I got to share some things he told me with my kids, so it was just an enjoyable time. There's more to life than making money. Hey, I love money, don't get me wrong. And no, the love of money is not the root of all evil, even though there's a book that says that. That was translated incorrectly, I believe. It was the lust of money. The lust of anything is the root of all evil. The lust of anything will destroy you, unless you have a lust to look within yourself and discover more about who and what you are. Now that's one that doesn't destroy, it actually builds up. Okay, now I had another situation where I went and bid a job the other day, and I got the job, and they called me back to sign the contract. Because I don't high pressure people, I don't push people into signing the contract when I'm there. I go there, I bid the job, I spend time talking to them. If they decide they want to do it right then, that's great. If they want to think about it, that's fine. So this was one of those jobs that I gave them the price, and well, I talked to them, I got the numbers, and I sent the numbers back to them in a text message. And I tell them, if you decide you want me to do it, we will draw up a contract. So I sent them the text message, and they responded with, well, we're going to think about it. Hey, great. So anyway, the next day they called me and they said, well, we had a few questions, but we're going to go ahead and have you do it. So I called, the lady answered, and she asked her questions, and I answered them. And we said, well, let's get together and do a contract. So I said, hey, I have a job to bid down in Chesterfield. I can stop by on the way back. So I went and bid the job in Chesterfield, and I stopped by, and her husband was there. He's like 79 years old, and he had been in the service during the Cold War, 1961. So I sat down there and we got to talking, and I bet we talked. Of course, he had the check out there. He had to write a check for half the job, and he got to talking, and we didn't get the check wrote out until probably about 2 hours later. Now, when I was sitting there at first, I thought, man, I really need to get going. I thought, no, I need to sit there and listen to this guy. One thing, he probably doesn't have anybody to talk to, because when you get to be 79 years old, most of your friends are dead, and if there are any around, they're not able to talk, or they're just not in very good shape. So you don't have a lot of fellowship. So I thought, I'm gonna sit there and talk to him. And I sat there and talked to him, as I said, for 2 hours, and he told me a story about the blockade, and that was really interesting. The naval ships against the Russian ships when they were coming to Cuba. I really enjoyed that. And it was just one of the most memorable times I had. Okay, of course I wanted to get going, but I didn't. And we sat there and talked, and finally he wrote the check. I said, I do have to get going, had to get home. So he finally wrote the check out, and I left. And I look forward to working for him and and him sharing some more stories with me. He said he had a lot of stories. He was a former policeman, and he also was in the service. He worked at Boeing, and there was another place he worked too. Oh, I think he worked at GM or Chrysler, one of the two. So he's had a long life and a lot of experiences. He also shared a spiritual, religious experience that he had. He shared that with me too, and he became somewhat emotional. So I was also honored that he shared some of those things with me. I mean, he's a grown man. Oh, he was a police officer for a long time in St. Louis also. So he's had probably some very difficult and hardening situations in his life, but yet he shared his stuff with me there. So I found, like I said, that was an honor. Okay, on to the next situation. I've been working on this other job, bidding this other job all summer. It's a big complex, a treatment center. And we were trying to decide what kind of product to put on the wood, this and that. So I wrote up a couple different proposals and amendments. And finally I got a call last night that said, hey, you got the job. I said, hey, great. So, but this morning I get a message and they told me that they don't want to. I always take a half a deposit up front on any job. I've been doing that for years. I only had one client that didn't want to do that, and that was back in probably 85 or 86. And so my contact sent me a message and told me that they can't give the half up front. They want to pay me weekly. Well, I did not go into business to work for someone else in that aspect, like get a weekly paycheck. So now I have to decide, am I going to go along with the terms of the contract, or it's a big job, probably one of the biggest ones I've ever done. So now I have to ask myself, is it my pride because they're not agreeing with my terms that I set? Or is it going against my, how do I say, my forte, my regulations, my structure? I have to figure that out. But the strongest point in any negotiation is being able to walk away in a minute. And I can walk away from this job. I'm busy, I have other work. I was really tentative about taking the job anyway, because once you get a job like that, we're going to be stuck on it, or doing it, more positive term. We're going to be doing it for about 6 weeks, probably. And this time of year is a bad time to start an outside job. The only other issue is the contact is a friend of mine, so I don't want to seem like a hard-nosed and say, no, if they don't agree to my terms, I'm not going to do it. But I have to ask myself, is this a way for me to get out of this? Maybe I don't need to be doing this. But then I also have to ask myself, am I using this because I'm afraid of this job, because I'm unsure about it and I'm uncertain and it's a risk? So those are things that I have to weigh within myself. Why is this happening? How can I make this work for me? Am I walking away? Am I thinking about walking away from it because I'm afraid? It's out of my comfort zone, which it is. But the last job that was out of my comfort zone, I made about 14 grand in a week, and we worked about 30 hours. So a lot of questions we have to ask ourselves, and we always must look within. It would be easy to get angry and say, I'm not going to do it. Those guys aren't agreeing to my terms. Everybody else does. But it's always about what's going on inside of me. And that's what you need to ask yourself in any situation. How did you create this? What is going on inside of you? Are you acting in fear? Are you acting in faith? Are you being responsible? Are you taking ownership of what's going on? Many questions. So that's where I'm at today. So hope if you have business situations, maybe you can relate to this I've shared with you that will be of value to you. Share this with a friend. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow.